She was a police officer left bleeding in a dark alley, seconds away from death, until the most dangerous man in Tokyo carried her to safety. He was a feared Yakuza boss with blood on his hands and ghosts in his heart, and she was everything he should have walked away from. But when her 7-year-old brother looked up at him with innocent eyes and reached for his hand, something inside this killer shattered completely. She told herself she would never trust him. He swore he would never love again. Yet fate had other plans, plans that would force a cop and a criminal to choose between the rules that defined them and a love that could destroy them both. What happens when the man the world calls a monster becomes the only one who makes you feel safe? Subscribe now and tell me where you're watching from, because this story is about to turn everything you believe about love and danger completely upside down. The clock on the wall showed 10:30. Mika Sato rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the small figure curled up on the worn couch. Kenji, her 7-year-old brother, slept with his mouth slightly open. His breathing was steady tonight. That was good. She pulled the thin blanket up to his chin. His skin felt warm but not feverish. The medication was working, for now. The apartment was tiny, just 2 rooms in a building that creaked when the wind blew too hard. But it was theirs, and it was safe. Mika grabbed her jacket from the hook by the door. Her police uniform felt heavy after a 12-hour shift. Her feet ached. Her back hurt. But Mrs. Taniguchi from next door would check on Kenji in an hour. The elderly woman never complained, even when Mika's schedule changed without warning. "I'll be back soon," Mika whispered to her sleeping brother. He didn't stir. She stepped into the hallway and locked the door behind her. The elevator was broken again. It had been broken for 3 weeks. The landlord kept promising to fix it. Mika didn't believe him anymore. 5 flights of stairs. Her legs felt like lead by the time she reached the bottom. Outside, the air was cold. Tokyo never really slept, but this neighborhood grew quiet after midnight. Streetlights cast long shadows on the empty sidewalk. Mika walked toward the bus stop 2 blocks away. Her mind drifted to bills. Rent was due in 6 days. Kenji's prescription needed refilling. The hospital wanted a payment on his outstanding balance. She would figure it out. She always did. A sound behind her made her slow down. Footsteps. More than one person. Mika's training kicked in. She didn't turn around right away. Instead, she angled her body slightly, using a shop window to catch reflections. 3 men. Moving fast. Too fast. She started to run, but they were already on her. A hand grabbed her jacket. Another shoved her into the narrow alley between 2 buildings. Her back hit the brick wall hard enough to knock the breath from her lungs. "Pretty cop," one of them said. His voice was rough, mean. "Someone wants to send a message." Pain exploded across her face, then her ribs, then everywhere. Mika fought back. She landed one good punch, heard a grunt of surprise. But there were 3 of them, and they were bigger, stronger. Her legs gave out. The ground was cold and wet beneath her cheek. The beating continued. She curled into a ball, trying to protect her head, trying to think of Kenji. Who would take care of him? Who would make sure he took his medicine? Then, suddenly, the blows stopped. Voices, shouting, the sound of bodies hitting the ground. Mika couldn't move, couldn't open her swollen eyes. She felt herself being lifted, strong arms, careful hands. "Don't," she tried to say. The word came out as a whisper. "Be still." A man's voice, low and calm. "You're safe now." She forced her eyes open just enough to see a face above her. Sharp features, dark eyes, a scar along his jaw. She knew that face. Everyone in her precinct knew that face. Hiroshi Tanaka, the head of the Tanaka family, the most powerful Yakuza boss in this part of Tokyo. Fear shot through her, but her body couldn't respond. She tried to speak, tried to pull away. Nothing worked. "Ryo, bring the car around," Hiroshi said to someone she couldn't see, "and call Dr. Yamamoto. Tell him we're coming." "The hospital," Mika managed. "No hospital." His voice left no room for argument. "They'll find you there. Finish what they started." Darkness crept in from the edges of her vision. She wanted to fight it. She wanted to demand answers, but her body had given up. The last thing she felt was the warmth of a car seat beneath her. The last thing she heard was Hiroshi's voice, steady and sure. "She'll live. Make certain of it." Light filtered through thin curtains. Soft morning light. Mika opened her eyes slowly. The pain came rushing back. Her ribs, her face, her entire body. But it was duller now. manageable. She was lying in a real bed, with clean white sheets and a thick comforter. The room around her was simple but beautiful. Wooden furniture, a vase of fresh flowers on the nightstand, a window that looked out onto a small garden. This was not a hospital. Mika tried to sit up and gasped at the sharp pain in her side. The door opened immediately. A woman in her 50s entered, carrying a tray. She had a kind face and gentle hands. "Please don't move too quickly," the woman said. "You have 2 cracked ribs. The doctor bandaged them, but they need time to heal." "Where am I?" Mika's voice was hoarse. "Somewhere safe." The woman set the tray on the nightstand. "Soup, rice, tea." "Mr. Tanaka asked me to look after you." "Mr. Tanaka, Hiroshi Tanaka." The name sent a chill down Mika's spine. "I need to leave." Mika pushed back the covers. "My brother." "Your brother is fine." The woman's voice was calm but firm. "He's being watched over. Discreetly. No one will harm him." Mika froze. "How do you know about my brother?" The door opened again, before the woman could answer. Hiroshi Tanaka stood in the doorway. In daylight, without fear clouding her vision, Mika could see him clearly. He was tall, with broad shoulders and a face that revealed nothing. His dark suit was perfectly pressed. His posture was straight and controlled. He looked like a businessman, but Mika knew better. "Leave us," he said to the woman. She bowed slightly and left without a word. Mika's heart pounded. She was alone with one of the most dangerous men in Tokyo, and she couldn't even stand up straight. "You should eat." Hiroshi didn't move from the doorway. He kept his distance deliberately. "The doctor said you lost blood. Why did you save me?" The question came out harder than she intended. "What do you want?" Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger. Something sadder. "I want nothing from you." "That's not how this works." Mika forced herself to sit up despite the pain. "You're Yakuza. There's always a price." Hiroshi was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than before. "The men who attacked you work for Daiichi Kuroda. He runs the territory east of here. He's been pushing into my area for months." He paused. "You arrested 3 of his dealers last week." He took it personally. Mika remembered the arrest. A routine bust, nothing special. But it had made Kuroda notice her. "So this is about your business," she said bitterly, "not about saving me. Kuroda is a threat to many people. You happen to become one of them." Hiroshi's gaze held hers. "I couldn't let you die in that alley. Whatever you believe about me, I am not that kind of man." The words hung in the air between them. Mika wanted to argue, wanted to throw his offer of safety back in his face, but she thought of Kenji, alone in their tiny apartment, vulnerable. "My brother," she said quietly. "I need to see him." "Not yet." Hiroshi's voice was firm, but not cruel. "Kuroda's men are watching your building. If you go back now, you'll lead them straight to him." The reality of her situation settled over Mika, like a heavy blanket. She was trapped, not by Hiroshi, but by circumstance. "How long?" she asked. "A few days, maybe a week, until I can deal with Kuroda properly." Mika looked at the man in the doorway, the feared Yakuza boss, the criminal, the killer, but he had saved her life, and he was protecting her brother. "I won't be a prisoner here," she said finally. Hiroshi nodded once. "You're not a prisoner, the doors aren't locked, but I would ask you to be careful. For your own sake." He turned to leave, then paused. "Your brother takes medication every morning. The woman who watches him knows this. He won't miss a dose." Then he was gone. Mika stared at the empty doorway for a long time. Her chest ached, but not just from the cracked ribs. She was grateful, and she hated that she was grateful. Outside the window, birds sang in the garden. The morning light grew brighter. Somewhere in this strange, beautiful house, a dangerous man was keeping her safe. Mika didn't understand any of it, but for now, she was alive. And Kenji was protected. That would have to be enough. 3 days passed. Each one felt longer than the last. Mika's body healed slowly. The swelling on her face went down. The bruises turned from purple to yellow. Her ribs still hurt when she breathed too deeply, but she could move without gasping now. The house was quiet, beautiful and quiet. Mika spent most of her time in her room looking out the window at the garden. Sometimes she walked through the hallways. No one stopped her. No one followed her. Hiroshi had been telling the truth. She wasn't a prisoner, but she wasn't free either. On the morning of the 4th day, the kind woman, her name was Yuki, brought breakfast and a phone. Mr. Tanaka thought you might want to call your brother, Yuki said. It's a secure line, untraceable. Mika's hands shook as she took the phone. She had memorized Mrs. Taniguchi's number years ago. Her fingers moved across the screen automatically. It rang twice. Hello? The elderly woman's voice was cautious. Mrs. Taniguchi, it's Mika. Oh, dear girl. Relief flooded the old woman's voice. I'd been so worried. A nice young man came by and explained you had a work emergency. He said you'd call when you could. Mika's jaw tightened. A nice young man. One of Hiroshi's people. Is Kenji okay? He's right here, eating breakfast like a good boy. Hold on. There was shuffling. Then a small, familiar voice. Mika? Tears sprang to her eyes. She blinked them back hard. Hey, little one. How are you feeling? Good. Mrs. Taniguchi made pancakes. Kenji's voice was bright, happy. When are you coming home? The question cut through her heart. Soon, sweetheart. Very soon. I just have to finish something for work first. Okay. He accepted it easily, the way children do. I miss you. I miss you too, so much. Mika pressed her hand against her chest, where the ache was deepest. Be good for Mrs. Taniguchi, okay? Take your medicine. Don't stay up too late. I will. I won't. I promise. She could hear the smile in his voice. It made everything hurt more. I love you, Kenji. Love you too, Mika. The call ended. Mika sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the phone in her hands. Her brother was safe. He was happy. He didn't know anything was wrong. She should be relieved. She was relieved. But she was also angry. At Kuroda for attacking her. At herself for being vulnerable. And at Hiroshi for making all of this feel almost normal. A knock at the door made her look up. Hiroshi stood in the hallway. He wasn't wearing a suit today, just a simple dark shirt and pants. He looked younger somehow, less intimidating. You spoke with your brother, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Mika set the phone on the nightstand. Thank you for arranging it. The words felt strange in her mouth, thanking a Yakuza boss. But they were true. Hiroshi nodded. I wanted to discuss something with you, if you're feeling well enough. Mika stood up slowly. Her ribs protested, but she ignored them. I'm listening. My men have been watching your apartment building. Kuroda's people are still there, waiting. Hiroshi's voice was matter-of-fact. It's not safe for you to return yet, but I understand you're worried about your brother. Of course I'm worried. He's 7 years old and he's sick. The frustration leaked into her voice. I can't just stay here forever. I'm not asking you to. Hiroshi stepped into the room but stayed near the door. Always keeping distance, always giving her space. I have a proposal, one that would keep both you and Kenji safe until this situation is resolved. Mika crossed her arms. What kind of proposal? I have another property, smaller, more private. It has better security and it's far enough from the city that Kuroda's men won't find it easily. He paused. Your brother could join you there. The offer hung in the air between them. Mika's first instinct was to refuse, to demand that he let her handle her own problems. But she thought of Kenji, his fragile health, his innocent trust in a world that didn't deserve it. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. Really? Why do you care what happens to us? Hiroshi was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, sadder. Because I couldn't protect my own family, and I won't stand by while someone destroys another. The words hit Mika like a physical blow. She stared at him, searching his face for any sign of deception. She found none. Your family, she whispered. My wife. My son. Hiroshi's jaw tightened. They died 3 years ago. A car accident. I wasn't there. The pain in his voice was real. Raw. Mika recognized it because she carried the same kind of pain herself. Her parents had died when Kenji was just a baby. She had raised him alone since she was 22. I'm sorry, she said, and she meant it. Hiroshi nodded once, accepting the words without comment. Think about my offer. Take whatever time you need. He turned to leave. Yuki will bring lunch in an hour. Then he was gone. Mika stood in the middle of the room, her mind racing. Everything she knew about Yakuza told her to run, to get as far away from this man as possible. But everything she felt told her something different. 2 days later, Kenji arrived at the new house. Mika waited by the door, her heart pounding. The car pulled up slowly. Ryo, Hiroshi's right-hand man, stepped out first. He was tall and broad with a calm face that revealed nothing, but his movements were gentle as he opened the back door. Kenji tumbled out, his small backpack bouncing against his shoulders. "Mika!" He ran straight into her arms. She caught him, ignoring the sharp pain in her ribs, and held him tight. Tears streamed down her face. She didn't try to stop them. "I missed you so much," she whispered into his hair. "I missed you too." Kenji pulled back, looking at her face with concern. "You have bruises. Did you get hurt?" Mika smiled through her tears. "Just a little accident at work. I'm okay now." Kenji studied her for a moment, then nodded seriously. "Mrs. Taniguchi said I should be extra good because you were tired. I was extra good. I only forgot my medicine once. That's my brave boy." Behind them, footsteps approached. Mika looked up to see Hiroshi standing a few feet away. His hands were clasped behind his back. His expression was carefully neutral. Kenji turned, curiosity bright in his eyes. "Who's that?" he asked in a loud whisper. "That's..." Mika hesitated. "That's Mr. Tanaka. He's letting us stay at his house for a while." Kenji wriggled free from her arms and walked toward Hiroshi with the fearlessness of childhood. He stopped right in front of the tall man and looked up. "Hello, Mr. Tanaka. I'm Kenji. I'm 7. Something shifted in Hiroshi's face. The careful blankness cracked. For just a moment, Mika saw raw emotion flash through his eyes. Pain, longing, and something that looked almost like fear. "Hello, Kenji." Hiroshi's voice was rougher than usual. "Welcome to my home." Kenji smiled, big and bright. "It's really pretty here. Do you have a garden?" "I like gardens." "I do." Hiroshi cleared his throat. Perhaps I could show you later." "Really?" Kenji's whole face lit up. Without warning, he reached out and grabbed Hiroshi's hand. "Can we go now, please?" Hiroshi went completely still. He stared down at the small hand holding his. His fingers trembled slightly. Mika watched, her breath caught in her chest. She saw the struggle in Hiroshi's eyes, the memories fighting to surface, the walls he had built so carefully threatening to crumble. Then slowly, his fingers curled around Kenji's hand. "After lunch," he said quietly. "If your sister says it's okay." Kenji turned to Mika with hopeful eyes. "Can I? Please?" She should say no. She should keep her brother away from this dangerous man. But looking at Hiroshi's face, at the tender, wounded expression he couldn't quite hide, she found she couldn't refuse. "After lunch," she agreed. Kenji cheered and ran inside to explore. Hiroshi stood frozen for another moment, staring at his empty hand. When he finally looked at Mika, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Mika understood. Whatever wall had stood between them had just developed its first crack, and she wasn't sure if that terrified her or gave her hope. The days settled into a rhythm, quiet, steady, almost peaceful. Mika found herself watching. That was all she could do at first, watch and try to understand the man who had upended her entire life. Hiroshi was nothing like she expected. Every morning, he rose before dawn. She heard him moving through the house, his footsteps soft but deliberate. He trained in the garden, going through movements that looked like a dance, slow and controlled, powerful but calm. Sometimes Kenji woke early too. He would press his nose against the window and watch with wide eyes. "He's like a superhero," Kenji whispered one morning. Mika stood behind him, her hand on his shoulder. "He's just a man." But even as she said it, she wasn't sure she believed it. A week passed. Then 2. Kenji's health stayed stable. The country air seemed to agree with him. His cheeks grew pink. His laughter came more easily. He spent hours in the garden, following Hiroshi around like a small shadow. At first, Mika tried to stop him. She didn't want her brother getting attached to someone so dangerous. But Kenji was stubborn in the way only 7-year-olds can be. "Mr. Tanaka said he'd teach me about the koi fish," Kenji announced one afternoon. "They have names." "Did you know fish could have names?" "I didn't know that," Mika admitted. "The big orange one is called Sunrise, and the white one with black spots is Cloud." Kenji's eyes sparkled. "Mr. Tanaka named them when he was a kid. His dad built the pond." Something twisted in Mika's chest. She tried to ignore it. That evening she found Hiroshi alone in the study. He stood by the window, looking out at the darkening sky. A glass of whiskey sat untouched on the desk. "My brother talks about you constantly," she said from the doorway. Hiroshi turned. His face was carefully blank, but his eyes showed something else, something vulnerable. "He's a good boy, kind, curious." A pause. "He reminds me of..." He stopped, his jaw tightened. "Your son," Mika finished quietly. Hiroshi didn't answer. He didn't need to. Mika stepped into the room. She moved slowly, the way you might approach a wounded animal. She stopped a few feet away from him. What was his name? The question hung in the air. For a long moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Yuto. The name came out rough, broken. He was 4 when he died. He loved the garden, loved the fish, loved everything. Mika's heart ached. She thought of Kenji, of how much she loved him, of how destroyed she would be if anything happened to him. "I'm sorry," she said. The words felt small, useless, but they were all she had. Hiroshi finally looked at her. His eyes were wet, but no tears fell. "My wife's name was Akemi. She was kind, patient. She saw something good in me when no one else did." His voice cracked slightly. "The accident happened on a night like this. Clear sky, no warning. A truck driver fell asleep at the wheel." He turned back to the window. "I wasn't there. I was here dealing with business. Always business." Bitterness crept into his voice. "I told myself I was protecting them by building power, by being strong. But I wasn't there when it mattered." Mika moved closer. She didn't touch him, but she stood beside him looking out at the same darkening sky. "It wasn't your fault," she said softly. "Wasn't it?" He let out a breath. "I chose this life. Every danger, every enemy. I brought them all to my door. My family paid the price. The truck driver fell asleep. That wasn't because of your life. That was just—" She searched for the right word. "Terrible, random, unfair." Hiroshi was quiet for a long time. "Perhaps," he finally said, "but the guilt doesn't care about logic." Mika understood that more than he knew. She had carried guilt since her parents died. Guilt that she hadn't been a better daughter. Guilt that she couldn't save them. Guilt that she sometimes resented being Kenji's only family. "No," she agreed. "It doesn't." They stood together in silence as the last light faded from the sky. It wasn't comfortable exactly, but it wasn't uncomfortable either. It was something new, something Mika didn't have a name for yet. The peace shattered 3 days later. Mika was helping Kenji with his reading when Ryo appeared in the doorway. His face was tight, controlled, but she had learned to read him by now. Something was wrong. "Mr. Tanaka needs to speak with you," Ryo said. "Yuki will watch the boy." Kenji looked up with curious eyes, but Mika kept her voice light. "I'll be right back, little one. Finish that chapter for me, okay?" She followed Ryo down the hallway to Hiroshi's study. Her heart beat faster with each step. Hiroshi stood behind his desk. His face was carved from stone. In his hand he held a photograph. "Close the door," he said. Ryo obeyed and stayed inside. Hiroshi set the photograph on the desk and slid it toward her. Mika looked down. Her blood turned to ice. It was a picture of Kenji, playing in the garden, here, at this house. "It was delivered this morning," Hiroshi said. His voice was flat, deadly. "No return address, no note." Mika's hands shook. "How did they find us?" "I don't know. But they want us to know they're watching." Hiroshi's eyes met hers. "Kuroda is sending a message. He's not afraid of me." Fear clawed at Mika's throat. She thought of Kenji, just down the hall, sounding out words in his reading book. Innocent, vulnerable. "What do we do?" "We move. Tonight." Hiroshi turned to Ryo. "Prepare the mountain house, full security. No one in or out without my direct approval." Ryo nodded and left immediately. Mika stood frozen, staring at the photograph, at her brother's smiling face, at the proof that nowhere was safe. "This is my fault," her voice cracked. "If I hadn't arrested those men—" "Stop." Hiroshi's voice was firm, but not harsh. "Kuroda is a monster. He would have found a reason eventually. You did nothing wrong. But Kenji will be protected." Hiroshi moved around the desk to stand in front of her. "I give you my word. No one will touch him." Mika looked up at him. She saw determination in his eyes, and something else, something fierce and protective. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you care so much about us?" Hiroshi didn't answer right away. His hand moved almost of its own accord and brushed a strand of hair from her face. The touch was gentle, brief, electric. "Because you matter," he said simply. "Both of you." Then he stepped back and the moment passed. The mountain house was smaller but more secure. High fences, armed guards, cameras everywhere. It felt like a fortress. Kenji didn't seem to mind. He explored his new room with excitement, bouncing on the bed to test its softness. "This is like an adventure," he said happily, Like in my books, Mika forced a smile. Exactly like that. But at night, when Kenji slept, fear kept her awake. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to every sound, every creak, every whisper of wind. A knock at her door made her jolt upright. "It's me," Hiroshi's voice, low and calm. She opened the door. He stood in the hallway, still dressed. He hadn't slept either. "I saw your light under the door," he said. "Couldn't sleep?" "No?" He nodded, understanding without judgment. "Would you like some tea?" I was about to make some. It was such a simple offer, such a normal thing. Mika found herself nodding before she could think about it. They sat in the kitchen, 2 cups of tea steaming between them. The clock on the wall showed 3 in the morning. Outside, the mountain was silent and dark. "I used to do this with Akemi," Hiroshi said quietly. "When I couldn't sleep, she would make tea and sit with me. Never asked questions, just stayed." Mika wrapped her hands around her cup, feeling its warmth. "Sounds like she loved you very much." "She did. More than I deserved." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "She used to say I was like a locked door. She spent years finding the right key." "Did she find it?" "Yes." His voice softened. "She found it." Mika took a sip of her tea. It was warm and slightly sweet. Perfect. "My parents died when I was 22, she heard herself say. "Car accident, too. I had to drop out of college to take care of Kenji. He was just a baby." Hiroshi listened. His eyes never left her face. "Everyone said I should give him up, put him in the system, find a family that could take care of him properly." Mika's grip on her cup tightened. "But he was my brother, my blood. I couldn't abandon him. You raised him alone." "Yes. Worked 2 jobs while finishing my degree at night. Became a police officer because it was stable, good benefits, good insurance for his medical needs." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I thought I was doing everything right. I thought if I just worked hard enough, kept my head down, followed the rules, we'd be safe." Her voice cracked. "But look where we are." Hiroshi reached across the table. His hand covered hers. "Warm, steady, strong. You did everything right," he said firmly. "You protected him. You loved him. You built a life from nothing. That takes courage." Mika looked at their hands, his over hers, a criminal and a cop, enemies by every definition. But in this moment, in this quiet kitchen, they were just 2 people who had lost too much, 2 people trying to find something worth holding on to. "I was wrong about you," she whispered. "About what?" "I thought you were dangerous, a monster, someone to fear." She met his eyes. "But you're not. You're just a man. A sad, lonely man who builds walls because he's afraid of losing again." Hiroshi's breath caught. His hand trembled slightly against hers. "Perhaps," he said quietly. "But the walls are there for a reason. Walls keep people out, but they also trap you inside." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Hiroshi didn't respond, but he didn't pull his hand away either. They sat together until dawn painted the sky pink and gold. No more words were needed. Something had shifted, something important, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Mika felt something other than fear. She felt hope. The mountain house became home in ways Mika hadn't expected. Mornings started with breakfast together. Hiroshi, Mika, and Kenji around a simple wooden table. Yuki cooked, but Hiroshi often helped. He made perfect eggs. Kenji declared them the best in the world. Afternoons were for reading, walking, and quiet conversations. Kenji found a butterfly garden behind the house. He spent hours there, catching and releasing, always gentle, always careful. Evenings were the best. They ate dinner as the sun set over the mountains. Sometimes Hiroshi told stories about his childhood, about his father, who had been strict but fair, about his mother, who had loved flowers and music, about a simpler time, before power and violence became his daily companions. Mika listened. She asked questions. She laughed at his jokes, surprised that a man so serious could be funny. And slowly, without meaning to, she fell. It started small. A flutter in her chest when he entered a room. A warmth in her stomach when their eyes met. A longing she couldn't name when he said goodnight and walked away. She tried to fight it, told herself it was gratitude, told herself it was the situation, told herself 100 lies. But lies have a way of crumbling. One evening, Kenji fell asleep early. He had worn himself out chasing butterflies. Mika tucked him in, kissed his forehead, and closed his door softly. When she turned around, Hiroshi was there. "Walk with me," he asked. They walked through the garden in silence. The moon was full and bright. It cast silver light on everything it touched. "I've been thinking," Hiroshi said finally, "about what happens after." Mika's heart clenched. After Kuroda is dealt with. After you're safe." He stopped walking and turned to face her. "You'll go back to your life, your apartment, your job. Everything will return to normal." The words felt wrong, like a shirt that didn't fit anymore. "Will it?" Mika asked quietly. Hiroshi's eyes searched her face. "Isn't that what you want?" She should say yes. She should be counting the days until she could leave, until she could return to her ordinary, safe, predictable life. But she couldn't make herself say the words. "I don't know what I want anymore," she admitted. Something flickered in Hiroshi's eyes. Hope, maybe, or fear, perhaps both. "Mika!" A shout from the house cut him off. Ryo's voice, urgent, afraid. They ran. The attack came fast, too fast. 3 men had breached the perimeter. They came through the back where the forest was thickest. 2 guards were down, not dead but hurt badly. Ryo met them at the door. His face was grim. "They're inside, heading for the bedrooms." "Kenji." Mika's blood turned to ice. She pushed past both men and ran. Her ribs screamed in protest. She ignored them. The hallway seemed endless. Her legs pumped. Her heart pounded. She could hear sounds up ahead, crashing, shouting. She burst through Kenji's door. A man stood over her brother's bed. Kenji was awake, pressed against the headboard, eyes wide with terror. The man reached for him. Mika didn't think. She acted. She grabbed a lamp from the dresser and swung it with all her strength. It connected with the man's skull. He stumbled, shocked. She swung again. He went down. But there were 2 more behind him. They grabbed her arms, pulled her back. She kicked and screamed and fought, but they were bigger, stronger. "Mika!" Kenji's voice was high with fear. One of the men laughed, cruel and cold. "Kuroda sends his regards." Then Hiroshi appeared. He moved like water, fast and fluid and deadly. The first man went down before he even saw the blow coming. The second tried to fight back. It didn't matter. Hiroshi was everywhere at once, a punch, a kick, a throw that sent the man crashing through the window. In seconds, it was over. Hiroshi stood in the middle of the room, breathing hard. His knuckles were bloody. His eyes were wild. For one moment, Mika saw the man the world feared, the killer, the monster. Then Kenji whimpered, and everything changed. Hiroshi's face softened. He moved slowly, carefully, kneeling by the bed. His voice was gentle when he spoke. "Kenji, look at me. You're safe now. No one will hurt you." Kenji stared at him with tearful eyes. His small body trembled. "I was so scared," he whispered. "I know." Hiroshi opened his arms slowly. An invitation, not a demand. "May I?" Kenji launched himself into Hiroshi's arms. He buried his face against the man's chest and sobbed. Hiroshi held him tight, one hand cradling the back of his head. "You're safe," he repeated. "I promise. You're safe." Mika watched, tears streaming down her own face. She watched this dangerous man hold her brother with more tenderness than she had ever seen. She watched him whisper comfort and stroke Kenji's hair and rock him gently until the sobs faded. And she knew, with absolute certainty, she loved him. The rest of the night passed in a blur. More guards arrived. The men who attacked were taken away. Ryo coordinated everything with quiet efficiency. The house was secured, reinforced, made safe again. But safe felt different now. Kenji refused to sleep alone. Mika brought him to her room and held him until his breathing slowed, until the nightmares loosened their grip, until exhaustion finally won. When she was sure he wouldn't wake, she went looking for Hiroshi. She found him in the garden, sitting on a stone bench, staring at his bloody hands. He didn't look up when she approached. "Is Kenji asleep?" His voice was hollow. "Yes." Mika sat beside him, close but not touching. "He asked about you, wanted to make sure you were okay." Something broke in Hiroshi's face, a crack in the stone mask he always wore. "I almost lost him." His voice shook. "Almost lost both of you." "Just like—" He couldn't finish, didn't need to. Mika reached out. She took his bloody hands in hers, held them gently. "But you didn't. You saved us. You saved him." Hiroshi looked at their joined hands, at the blood and the dirt and the proof of violence. "This is who I am, Mika. This is what I do. I hurt people. I kill people. No matter how much I want to be different. You protected your family. She squeezed his hands. That's who you are. A man who protects the people he loves. He looked at her then. Really looked. His eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted, afraid. I can't lose anyone else, he whispered. I won't survive it. Then don't push me away. Mika moved closer. Let me stay. Let me be here. Not because I have to, but because I want to. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. You don't know what you're asking, Hiroshi said. This life, my life, it's dangerous, complicated. You would be giving up everything. I would be choosing. Mika's voice was steady. Sure. For once in my life, I would be choosing what I want. Not what's safe, not what's expected. What I want. And what do you want? She answered by leaning in and pressing her lips to his. The kiss was soft, gentle, a question and an answer all at once. Hiroshi went still for one heartbeat. Then his hands came up to cup her face, and he kissed her back like a drowning man finding air. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. Hiroshi rested his forehead against hers. Stay, he whispered. Please, both of you, stay. Yes. She smiled through her tears. Yes. 3 months later, the danger was truly over. Kuroda was gone. Not dead. Hiroshi had learned that some battles were better won without blood, but finished. His organization crumbled. His allies abandoned him. He fled Tokyo and never returned. The mountain house became a real home. Kenji started school in the nearby village. He made friends. His health improved. He called Hiroshi by his first name now, though sometimes he slipped and called him something else. Dad. The first time it happened, Hiroshi froze. His eyes went wide, then wet. Then he pulled Kenji into a hug and held on like he would never let go. Mika watched from the doorway, her heart so full it hurt. They became a family, not in the traditional way, not in the way anyone expected, but in the way that mattered. Mornings with breakfast and laughter, afternoons with butterflies and books, evenings with dinner and stories and love. 1 year after the night they met, the night Mika lay bleeding in an alley and a stranger saved her life, Hiroshi proposed. It was simple. No grand gestures, no expensive rings, just the two of them in the garden under the same moon that had witnessed their first walk. I was dead before I met you, he said quietly, going through the motions, building walls, pretending that was enough. He took her hands. You brought me back to life. You and Kenji. You gave me something worth protecting again. Mika's tears fell freely. She didn't try to stop them. I was so afraid when I met you, she admitted. Afraid of who you were, what you represented. But then I saw the truth. You're not a monster, Hiroshi. You're just a man who loved and lost and kept going anyway. She squeezed his hands. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen. He slid a simple gold band onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Is this a yes? He asked, a rare smile playing on his lips. It's a yes, she laughed. It's been a yes since the night you held my brother and promised him he was safe. They married in the garden. Just family. Just love. Kenji stood beside them, holding the rings, beaming with pride. And when Hiroshi kissed his bride under the cherry blossoms, the past finally loosened its grip. The walls came down. The wounds healed. The fear faded. What remained was simple, beautiful, true. A family built not from blood or obligation, but from choice. A love that grew from danger into devotion. A home where even the most guarded hearts learned to stay open. And in the quiet moments, the morning tea, the evening walks, the whispered good nights, Mika knew she had found exactly what she never knew she was looking for. Not safety, not stability, not the predictable life she had planned. Something better, something real, someone who saw her, protected her, loved her, and she loved him back completely forever.